What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Coop here, and today we're going to be looking at another Divinity Original Sin build. Today we're going to be looking at a mod by the wonderful Lost Crane. You guys should definitely check him out. His mod is pretty well done. It's actually very polished, very balanced. He is still relatively a newer sort of player to the game, so he doesn't have everything quite polished out, but I do highly suggest you guys do check him out because he did a lot of good work with this mod. Now, without further ado, let's actually dive in and look at the Iferni class, because it's basically a rogue-based class that uses a lot of shape-shifting and a lot of smoke screens. So this is like a character that is super duper awesome when fighting against range-based characters. It basically takes them completely out of the fight. When you use this class, it really blocks the vision and it makes it very easy for you. I highly suggest partnering this up with like a melee sort of class. However, you can make this work in group play. Just be smart about where you place your smoke screens. So without further ado, let's jump in. So first thing that you're going to be doing is, obviously, since this is a rogue based class, try to choose something that is a human. So Thane, Ifon, Lose, and any custom human and any custom undead human as well work really well because of the nice little perk here, which gives you some initiative and a 5% crit chance. So obviously crits are very important for your character. However, obviously you're going to be using daggers, so you get to do that backstab damage. However, later on we're going to try to pick up some talents to really utilize that extra crit so it doesn't go to waste. And I'll show you guys later on what that means. So when jumping into the preset, one of the things I did is I put points into finesse, so 2 points into finesse and 1 into wits. The reason that we put it into wits is for the crit and initiative and the detect traps and detect hidden treasures as well. However, the crit is the least important part because you basically just have to walk around behind them and stabby, right, and get those sick backstab damage because you always crit when you backstab. However, the main thing is the initiative. You want to make sure that you're always first and you're able to maneuver where you need to go. So, as for abilities, you can put points into Scoundrel. Scoundrel is very helpful because it allows you to get that movement speed increase, once again to put you where you want, and because you always crit, you want to make sure that you increase your crit multiplier to deal more damage to give you those sick stabs. So, one of the points I put into was Warfare because I like to pick up the stuns that Warfare provides. However, you do not have to. If you are going to do this as well, you could put another point into Scoundrel if you want. Or you could put another point into Polymorph because you'll have to pick up Polymorph later on to get one of the main spells in this build, which is Devil Aspect, which basically turns you into a devil and gives you a lot of bonuses based off of the smokescreen skills that we're going to be picking up along the way. But in this scenario for you, I would highly suggest picking up Warfare just because it gives you access to stuns. So the ability skill set that you kind of start off with is good old Without a Trace, which basically allows you to turn invisible and throw a smoke screen on the ground. So smoke screen is great because it gives you a nice little disrupt to the ranged characters, and on top of it, it makes you invisible, so it gives you sort of a way of screwing over the range, and on top of it being out of the fight for a tiny bit to figure out where you want to go. Next is Smoke Step, which is a teleport ability, which is super awesome because if you're on high ground you can teleport even farther. And on top of it, it drops a smoke screen on you, so range-based characters can't attack you. So once again, you're kind of starting to see a theme here where they can't target you with certain spells and abilities, which is super awesome for you. Lastly is smoke screen, which basically you drop a smoke screen, then you teleport somewhere else. So this is to disrupt, again, range characters or any characters that have basic abilities that they want to use against people or to heal. So out of all these three skills, I really don't like smokescreen right in the beginning. You really don't need it at the moment, so I would highly suggest getting rid of it and maybe going for adrenaline or going for a stun. I like to go for the battle stun because you can hit multiple targets that don't have physical armor and knock them onto the ground, which most of the characters in the beginning of the game don't really have that much armor, so you're able to just do one backstab, destroy it, and then you can attack another person, get a backstab, and then do a battle stomp to really hit all of them. But adrenaline is also a really good pick. However, I really just don't think smokescreen is good at the moment. Later on, it'll be wonderful. Now, for talents, there's a variety of good talents you can actually pick out here. If you do choose a Warfare, obviously pick up Executioner. Executioner is a really good one because when you kill something, you have an extra 2 action points, and with Scoundrel and having all that movement, you can kind of position yourself into another area of where you need to be because you have such far movement. So Executioner is definitely one I would definitely suggest picking if you do the Warfare. However, if you do not do Warfare, I suggest picking up good old Parrymaster because it will give you some dodge. And when you get Devil Aspect, you do get a bonus when in Smokescreen of getting 40% crit. So, dual wielding, while in Devil Aspect, while in Smoke, you get a lot of dodge, which allows you a 50-50 shot of getting damage. And then on top of it, if you, say, put points into, once you're kind of maxed out, into single-handed, or not single-handed, dual wielding, you do get a percentage of dodge as well from that, so allowing yourself to get some really good points here and there. If you are doing a Lone Wolf build, I do suggest picking up Lone Wolf and then eventually picking up Executioner because it works out so well with having all those action points from Lone Wolf and having the Executioner to give you even more action points along the time of combat. So, taking a look at all the different spells that this guy actually has to offer, you can actually find the vendor to the right near kind of the crocodiles in Act 1, and in Act 2 he's right up here. However, after Act 2 he does disappear. The modder is still kind of learning the game and has only really done Act 1 and Act 2, and he's relatively new, so be very nice, but basically you can find him over here, and it's super nice to have him here. Now that I've rearranged it, so let's actually dive in and look at some of the spells that we have to offer. The first one is Devil Aspect, which is kind of the main spell. Like, if you don't really pick this spell, it kind of doesn't make sense as much compared to other things, because Devil Aspect gives you a lot of bonuses. 1, it makes it to where all damage you take is reduced by 10%. 2, it gives you heightened abilities when in smoke, which a lot of your spells are pretty much smoke based, which makes you a really good character to fight against sort of any range based characters or high cast magic users. So one of the things that it does not mention, however, is when you are in the smoke screen, you do get 40% dodge. So that's one of the things that you get with the good old Devil Aspect. So partner that up with like Parrymaster and maybe a little bit of points into dual wielding, you can get yourself some really high dodge chance here. And one of the things that's really awesome is you can dodge all these different attacks, giving you a nice almost 50-50 shot of missing something as long as you put your points into dodging a little bit. So, very helpful spell, highly recommend picking that up. Next is what is called basically your core spells. So these are all your smoke spells that you're going to need to pick up along the way to give you access to that smoke screen to partner up with Devil Aspect. So the first one is Smoke Step, which basically teleports you to a location and then you drop your good old smoke on the ground. So very easy, 1 cost, nice spell altogether. The one after that is Without a Trace, where you drop a smoke cloud and then on top of it become invisible. So I don't quite know often if it does always drop a smoke screen. I've seen on some occasions where it doesn't. I'm not quite sure, but I have noticed that it does that every once in a while. Now, what is important to note is the invisibility. So this is a nice way of escaping out of combat or to not take some hits, kind of arrange yourself where you need to be because you've got all the stuff in Scoundrel, and getting those good old backstabs that are giving you that nice sick damage that you really want. Next after that is Smoke Screen, where basically you drop the smoke and then you teleport away. So you got to keep that in mind, is this is to teleport then drop it, this is drop it then teleport. So you kind of have 2 different ways of doing it, and it gives you the sort of unique situation. So say like I'm in a bunch of range characters and I need to teleport away, I drop that, put that over there, and teleport to where I need to go. So very helpful right there. Or say like you've damaged a lot of stuff, but you're really low on damage as well, and you've got a bunch of melee characters around you, and you don't want them to heal, you drop that smoke screen, and then you teleport away. Next is Smoke Stacks, which basically is kind of like a blitz attack. You basically bounce around and hit a bunch of targets. However, for each target that you attack, it drops a smoke cloud on them. So very helpful for hitting multiple targets, very helpful for stopping a bunch of ranged characters, and adding a massive amount of smoke all over the area. On top of that, it does some decent amount of damage, and it gives you a way of getting a multi-attack in there. Next is Cauterizers, which basically does piercing damage. So keep in mind, this goes past the physical armor and magical armor, and just deals direct damage to them. However, your daggers now become fire damage for 2 turns. So that's why you put your points into pyrokinetic, because for a while there I was wondering, why is there points in pyrokinetic? This is why, because it scales up your fire damage with your daggers when you use this spell. And on top of it, it's required for some of the spells like Devil Aspect. So keep that in mind when you use it. It does piercing damage, and then after that, whenever you actually click and do the attack, it does count as magical damage. However, some of your spells, like for example Smokestack, still does physical damage even though it technically should be doing fire. So your melee attacks when you actually auto attack will be fire damage. Next is False Boasting, which is a rather interesting ability. It's kind of a high risk, high reward. You basically challenge an enemy, they get sort of boasted up, which basically means that they get a little bit of physical armor from this, and so do you as well. And then what ends up happening is, if you do kill them within 2 turns, you get a damage of increase of 50% damage, and you get healed on top of that, and you get a little bit of armor boost as well. So very high risk, high reward, but if you do not do it, your damage is then reduced by 50%, and then on top of it, you take a massive amount of piercing damage. For a level 10 character, I think I almost lose like half my life if I don't end up doing it. So when taking this into account, you gotta really make sure that you know that you're going to be able to kill that character. Very good for group play though, because you can have you and all your group members focus on one target, kill it, get that quick boost that you need, and then do all the mate plays that you need. Now, let's assume that you do not get what you need. Well, Close and Personal is sort of the spell for you. You jump over to a boasted or challenged enemy, landing behind them and backstabbing them, which means it crits, dealing piercing damage. So, it gives you a flat rate of the piercing damage. However, keep in account you will be critting with that, so if you've been increasing your crit multiplier with Scoundrel, it will do a lot more damage. So, that's a really good way. These kind of go hand in hand, so you spend a total of 3 action points to deal some massive amount of damage. So what I like to do is get them really close to death, and then you boast them, they get a little bit of physical armor, but that doesn't matter because you can attack them from the back and pierce right through that armor and kill them. Next is Devil Sight, which basically allows you to have dark vision. This is very good because what it does is it allows you to not be blind, and you're able to get rid of that blind effect, giving you that higher accuracy, and also because you're in smoke screen, it will allow you to basically be able to see a little bit better. So very helpful as well when you're trying to do that. So Devil Sight is definitely an ability that I highly suggest picking up. Darkness is a field that basically you drop pitch black to where nobody can see anything. You can't heal, you can't really attack, you're just in pitch blackness. Everybody is technically invisible when in this bubble, and it's one of those things that you really need to use situationally and understand that it is mainly a situational based spell. Next is Hellhound. Hellhound is an ability that's kind of just out there. I don't know why it's really here, but it basically summons a demon that is your caster level and based off of your summoning level. So pretty cool creature if you're into the summoning and you really want to have some different types of summoning, but it really doesn't fit with the theme, so I didn't add it into my personal build, but definitely highly recommend picking that up as well. Next is Hellstorm Daggers. This is your ultimate base ability, which you deal basically up to 12 different attacks on different people, and you gain damages based off of the height. It doesn't tell you the numbers, which I don't really like, but it can backstab. So keep that in mind. When you're attacking from the back, you can backstab and just deal some massive amount of damage. This is basically one of those moves that, like, if you are in a hairy situation or you would just want to kill everything real quick, real fast, you know, use this ability and you're able to just wipe the floor with them. I highly recommend, though, when you do use this ability, that you do have the Executioner perk, because it will allow you to get a lot of kills to give you some of those extra action points to help out. Though sometimes I believe that you can only have an extra 2. Maybe you're allowed to have extra. I haven't quite play tested it out with that particular spell, but very powerful overall, and we shall see what else we can do with that. Alrighty, after getting through all of Act 1 and starting off with Act 2, I am using right now my level 10 character, and we can actually kind of see where I started to put my attributes and started to allocate my points. So what I ended up doing is I got myself up to 25 finesse, and then after that I started putting points into wits to increase my crit, initiative, and detecting treasures and traps, which is very helpful, especially I would say later on. It's not so helpful in the beginning, but eventually you do get to the point where that detecting treasures, having a higher initiative is very useful when trying to kind of figure out and maneuver around the board onto where you need to go to attack the certain enemies that you want. Also, the crit is very helpful when partnering up with our opportunist. So opportunist is really great because they'll run by us and we have a higher chance of critting on them. And also, not all the time are you able to actually attack from the back. Sometimes you do have to attack with the front, especially with stuff like krakens and later other creatures down the line, but I don't want to spoil too much. But basically the finesse is one of the highest things that you need to get up to. I usually get it up to 25, then I put a bunch of points into wits. I put some points into memory though to allow us to get some other spells and stuff along the way. As for our ability modifiers, I did put a point into warfare just so we could get some of the stuns and kind of things that we can do right after destroying some of the physical armor to give us some more survivability. It's not required, however, but I found it to be a really good pick, especially right in the beginning, to just give you a little bit of a boost. Now, obviously, you're going to put a lot of points in the Scoundrel because, you know, you're a rogue, and one, you want to have that crit multiplier to make it to where when you backstab, it does a lot more damage, so very helpful. And also increasing your movement speed, allowing you to move all over the place where you need to go. So, obviously, have a few points into that. I added 1 point in there as a kind of a safety net, and I added a few points into Pyrokinetic and Polymorph just so that we could use some of our other spells along the way. And I did put a point into dual wielding, but if you're not doing Lone Wolf, I would suggest putting another point into Pyrokinetic just to give yourself a little bit of a boost, or Scoundrel. But in this case scenario, I have it like this. Now, for talents for people that are not doing Lone Wolf, I highly suggest choosing Executioner, Opportunist, and Parrymaster. Parrymaster is great because when you're in your Devil Aspect form and you are in Smokescreen, you actually get 40% dodge. Super helpful. When you partner that up with having a little bit of points into dual wielding and eventually putting more points into it later on and increasing your damage, you'll have higher amount of dodge. So right now we have 42%, and then on top of it you add Parrymaster and you're at a 52% chance of dodge. So really helpful. But like I said, you have to put a lot more points into this, so if I were to do this I would probably have it like that, just increase my dodge chance, but it really depends on what you want to do. So in that case scenario, we'll just put that point back. And I, at the moment, will just go with the Lone Wolf just because it really shows the power of just this build by itself and what it can potentially be like when you get it later on. So let's actually dive in and look at the combat. I'll show you guys real quick sort of the build that I did. This is the build that I found to be kind of more successful and very helpful with doing what you need to do. So obviously we have a dual wield sort of setup here, so obviously you need your 2 daggers. If you are doing without Lone Wolf, you pick up Parrymaster to give yourself a higher chance of dodging, but basically it's a nice little flurry. I highly recommend you never use flurry to the face, that you mainly use it when backstabbing because you can have a potential of 3 crits, which, and when you crit, it gives you a 200% damage increase, allowing you to deal some good old damage. So you'll be basically doing at level 10 roughly around 60 damage per hit, which is pretty good, which can deal some good old amount of damage. Next I have cauterizers just to have us a alternative way of piercing and also doing some fire damage to give us a way to deal with targets that don't have as much magical armor. So that's really helpful also with false boasting as well. Next I got Battle Stomp. That's one of the reasons I put a point into Warfare, is to allow us to have a nice cone for giving us a bunch of knockdowns. Next I have, of course, Close and Personal for when we boast over characters to give us some good old piercing, which will always crit because we are backstabbing. So doing that backstab will give us a good amount of almost 100 damage. So that can potentially take like almost 1/3 of this guy's life over here. Next, obviously, I had to pick up some smoke spells, so I got Vanish into Smoke to give us a way of turning invisible and kind of getting around where we need to go. Next, I've got, obviously, Drop Smoke, which allows me to have yet another way of dropping smoke. And on top of that, we've got Smoke Stacks to give, yet again, more smoke. So, and then on top of that, we have false boasting because it's just going to give us a nice boost, especially when we know that we're going to be able to kill a target. Keep in mind that it does give them physical armor, so you need to make sure that if you are going to use it, use either your piercing damage or switch your thing over to cauterizers and then use your actual basic attack to deal the damage in magical. Devil aspect, because obviously that's kind of the whole point of the build. I did pick up adrenaline just to make sure that if we do get in a hairy situation, we're still able to do what we need to do. Adrenaline is very good, especially when you're trying to figure out stuff. What you can do is you can really, do your stuff, then pop adrenaline, and then give yourself like an escape, or give yourself an extra turn if you are Thane. Next, obviously, I got Devil's Sight just to be able to see in the smoke and actually do some of the damage and do some of the plays that we need to do, especially when going forward. Ultimate-wise, obviously, I chose Hellstorm Daggers because it's a very good ability for being a rogue. So, we have now, right here, 2 range characters, 2 melee characters, and let's see if we can't beat them. So, setting up, obviously, you are a rogue-based character. 99% of the time, you're going to want to sneak behind the character and then do your backstab damage. So, very important that when you do that, you get that backstab. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to boast this character over here because I think we can kill him. So, he now has a crap ton of magical armor, which is not good for us. I want to make sure that this guy is pretty much dead in the water. So what I'm going to do is teleport behind him, giving myself a nice crit in my piercing damage. Next I'm going to do adrenaline to give myself a little bit more help when dealing with this character. Now I could use my ultimate and basically kill him and give him the boost. That is something we could do. We could do some more smokestacks to give us just a bunch of smoke all over the area. We could do cauterizers, which I might do that just to give us some magical damage. There we go. And then from there, we're obviously not in a good spot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Devil Sight, so that way we can see in the dark. And then I'm going to puff into smoke to make myself invisible. So boom, we are invisible, there's nothing he can do. He's going to try to heal himself, but his other friends are not going to be able to heal him because obviously it blocks the vision. So he's going to try to do Soothing Cold to heal and give himself some magical armor. And what we're going to try to do is we're basically going to try to kill this guy, but if we do not be able to, we would be screwed. So I'm obviously going to use Hellstorm Daggers in this equation to really give ourselves a good amount of damage here. And then I'm also going to use it on, so we'll pretty much use all of it on here. It's kind of overkill, but it does give us a good amount of stuff, and it gives us that challenge. So now we have that challenge done, and we have some more physical armor and magical armor. So, really powerful. It is kind of a power play because obviously we did waste a source point on that, and we did use one of our strong abilities, but it did help us out so much with dealing with everything else out there. So we're going to go over here. Now, sometimes it seems like it doesn't work. Dark vision, we should be able to see in magical darkness and be able to attack. It doesn't always work, but hey, it is what it is. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to teleport into this area over here and give ourselves some darkness. This character is probably going to do Whirlwind because they can't attack us or see us. I am then going to use good old Devil Aspect. Now, one of the things you notice is I'm really not taking that much damage, so in the future I would highly recommend maybe at one point picking up, if I can find it, where are you? Hothead, because you can get yourself some more crit and give yourself some more accuracy. So, as you can see here, we are in the smoke, and we are hasted as well, which is super awesome. But we also will be picking up dodge in a second. It will show up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and basically see if we can't kill this character. So we killed this character, awesome, and we really can't do much at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just walk around and we'll just stab this character. So as you can see here, we got our dodging, so boom, missed, because obviously we are super duper good. Now, after this, I'm going to then, I can't really challenge him because he's not a challenge-based character, but, and we don't have our sort of magical damage anymore. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to destroy this magical armor here. So we'll destroy that. Knock down this character. Boom! Knock down. That character's sitting on the ground. We kill it, and we got 2 more action points. So, very helpful for us in the future. Anyways, guys, that was the good old Devilish Rogue build, otherwise known as the Iferni. I hope you guys do enjoy it. I thought this build was pretty awesome and a pretty good mod altogether, so be sure to check out that mod as well. It should be honestly in the top of the list at the moment because it is relatively popular and new, but it's definitely one of my favorite rogue types to play, and also you get to turn into like a giant demon, and I always like it when you can kind of polymorph into different creatures and things and do a lot of other cool abilities. So I thought overall this build was pretty awesome, so be sure to check that out. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel. We have been building up this small army over the last couple 6 months, and I'm very proud to say of how far we've gotten, and you guys are honestly awesome. You guys are probably one of the best fan bases out there that I've ever had, and it's just awesome just to read some of the comments and the love that you guys give. So be sure to, if you're new, subscribe to the channel, check it out. I have a lot of other variety of different videos I'm working on as well, because I know Divinity's been out for a while, so if you find something you might like, check them out as well. But also check out my latest merch that's going to be selling for a hot while. We're going to be probably closing up that because I'm having some other really cool merch that I'm like getting actually graphically done to look a lot more appealing and fresh. So be sure to check out that as well. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.